The latest injury updates on Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, and, well, of course, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Plus, Jake Liscow is here, his post-game takeaways, and we look ahead to Thursday Night Football.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, and welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Bengals podcast. He's Jake Liscow. I'm James Rapien, and yes, Jake is here. You're about to hear his post-game takeaways, some thoughts on the Bengals, and much, much more coming up in just a second. Today's show is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's Jase Medical.com. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow wherever you get your podcasts. And Jake, welcome back. You've been traveling. The internet did not work well for our post-game show, but you're back now, and it's good to see you.
Yeah, I'm very sorry for the internet issues where I wasn't able to join you for the post-game. I certainly had a lot of thoughts. We'll get to some of those today. What a tough way for that game to end. I'm sure everyone has felt that over the last 24 hours or so. But first, I think some notable injuries that this team is going to have to continue to fight through and continue to have to overcome with the very large game, to say it lightly, they've got coming up this Thursday.
Yeah, it starts with Trey Hendrickson. Obviously, there's been a lot of concern about Trey, and he's dealing with a hyperextended knee. Ian Rapoport has been all over this injury. The MRI came back, no other damage, which I think is extremely good news for the Bengals. Obviously good news for Trey. And while I think it's probably likely, and this is me saying it likely, he's out Thursday, maybe he's back for the Steelers game and the following week. You have that 10 days in between games. I wouldn't be shocked if that's the case. Who knows? Maybe he does play Thursday. Zach Taylor called him day to day, said it would be tough on a short week, and offered similar sentiments about T. Higgins and Sam Hubbard. Both guys obviously missed yesterday's game or Sunday's game, depending on when you're listening. And so we'll see on those guys too. But in my head, Jake, I'm approaching this week because as we record this, it's like 76 hours away from Bengals Ravens in Baltimore. I'm just kind of assuming all 3 guys are going to be out for Thursday.
Which is so tough to overcome in a game that they so desperately need, especially Trey and Sam on the defensive side of the ball against Baltimore, specifically against Lamar Jackson, an offensive line that has more often than not given him plenty of time. And we just watched CJ Stroud throw how many throws? I think it was 20 throws that he had more than 3 seconds until he threw the ball. And that's with Trey Hendrickson playing against, given a good left tackle, but the issues in the run defense, I don't think we're squarely on Sam Hubbard's absence. I think it helped for the Texans that Hubbard wasn't playing, but we see what happens when Trey has a hard time getting going against a good left tackle against the Texans. And at least that's with him playing and able to make some impact plays, right? Not having him, I don't think we've seen enough from these other guys to feel great about that, especially going against Lamar Jackson. And it's a little bit more than not feeling great about it. I'd say that it's a fairly large concern that the quality of play they've gotten out of their defensive line depth. Just when you need them to go a whole game now in a must-win game and a primetime game on the road, it's a big ask, and you hope that they can step up and make that effort. But I'm not feeling super confident about that particular unit going into Thursday Night Football right now.
I'm so not confident. What's the least confident I've ever been going into a game during this 3-year run when it comes to this front stepping up? Because if you have Trey Hendrickson, you could bank on him. If you have Sam Hubbard, obviously, DJ Reader, those are like your 3 staples. And the only one left of the core 4, we had Lou Anarumo on during the bye, would be BJ Hill and DJ Reader, those 2 on the interior. Well, those guys aren't the ones that are getting consistent pass rush. And you're going to be asking them, for the most part, to try to slow down the best rushing attack in the league after you gave up 188 yards to one of the worst rushing attacks in the league, in the Houston Texans. Devin Singletary still running after averaging 5 yards a carry and having a career high 150 yards. It's a really tough spot. And in a way, the standings, it's good that the Ravens lost because the Bengals are only a game and a half out of first place. At the same time, it's like, well, the Ravens, they need to right the ship too after an ugly loss where they should have beat the Browns and they didn't. They couldn't hang on. So it's tough. I think it's a tough ask, and yet that's probably what, and it is what makes Sunday so painful. If you get out of there and you're 6-3 and you beat Houston and you limp into Baltimore and you can't get it done, well, okay, you're 6-4 and you have extra recovery time for the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. You can live with that. And instead, the Bengals are in a much different spot, trying to avoid going 5-5, and that's uneasy. And I do think front seven wise, I mean, they tackled about as poorly as they have all year against the Texans. It was bad, and I think that's what stood out to me is how many missed tackles. Just on the final play, Noah Brown, he's not hard to tackle. Let's not pretend here like he's a hard player to tackle. And they're trying to swipe at the ball, and they give up another 10 yards or so, and they get into field goal range. So one of the many things that stood out.
Yeah, I think the proclivity to go for this strip, and it's worked so often for this team this year. That's just a spot where you just tackle them. You make the Texans make another play. You put some more time pressure on him. You don't let the guy get down with a kicker that's shaky and let him kick a sub 40-yard field goal for the game there. You just make the tackle in that spot. But on top of that, you mentioned the front four. And it's, to me, it was a pressure issue. We're talking about getting pressure on Lamar Jackson. We're looking forward to Thursday night. And I haven't had a chance to vent about this yet. I know a lot of people are on the Bengals coverage unit, and they weren't great. This isn't necessarily to defend them or go out of my way to say, no, they were actually good. It's when CJ Stroud can sit back there in a clean pocket for so long and wait for guys to uncover in cover 3, cover 2, somebody's going to be open. Like, if you can't get pressure in 3 seconds and you're playing zone or you're blitzing and you're not getting pressure, somebody's going to be open. I don't care who you are. And they did have losses in man-to-man too. They did have losses on time too. But man, the absence of pressure in that game was such a difference for CJ Stroud to be confident and to operate at a high level. They fooled him once early. Logan Wilson nearly had an interception where he faked the blitz, dropped into coverage. They had that opportunity. They had one ball thrown behind in the end zone that Chidobe Awuzie could have intercepted. So there were some opportunities they left out there. But to me, it's just the amount of time Stroud had to operate and how patient he could be. And he was playing great for the most part. You can't do that again against a team that actually knows how to run the ball, because the other side of it is, like you mentioned, one of the worst running games in the NFL. And we talked about before the game, like if you have to miss Sam Hubbard for a game, well, okay, you can maybe manage that against a bad running attack, but that was not the case against the Texans, and now you got a really good running attack coming.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. There's a lot more to get into as far as takeaways. Obviously, the defense, the secondary, you mentioned the pressure issue. There's plenty of thoughts. I have plenty of thoughts too. I want to get into the offense as well. So let's dive into more of Jake's takes as we roll on here on Locked On Bengals.
Today's episode of Locked On Bengals, not brought to you by Jake's Takes, but brought to you by Jase Case and Jase Medical. We spend a lot of time talking about football, and we're going to talk about something that is a little bit more serious here with the Jase Case. And maybe it's not the antibiotics you're interested in. You can get a 1-year supply of ED medications as well through Jase Medical. You don't have to worry about whether you can refill your generics. This is a service that you can go outside of that process. And in addition to that, in addition to your 12-month supply of your daily medication, you can use our promo code Locked On at checkout for a discount. You'll get $20 off your purchase. A verified customer told us that they were thankful for the service because supply chain issues caused them to cut their pills in half just to have it. They ordered most of their daily meds with a year supply and an antibiotic kit just to have that security. So if you or someone you love would like to get that peace of mind by having a year supply of any daily med Just go to jasemedical.com to see if it's offered for you and use our promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase.
Today's show is also brought to you by Streetside Brewery. And if you're looking for a place to watch the Thursday night game, get the Streetside. Streetside has 24 different taps from full pints to 4 ounces. It's a perfect place to watch a game. And hopefully you check them out per my recommendation ahead of the Texans game and you checked out their pregame tailgate because it is one of the best in the city. And if you go there Thursday, well, they have happy hour Monday through Friday, 4 to 6. So it's a perfect way you get off work, head to Streetside, have some apps, have some nice beers, and you get those happy hour prices before the Thursday night game as the Bengals look to improve to 6-4 on the year. They're located at 4003 Eastern Avenue in the Columbia Tusculum neighborhood near Lunken Airport, and they have a ton of different beers. Like I said, 24 different taps from fruited sours to pastry stouts, coffee blondes, brown ales, lagers, IPAs, anything you're looking for, Streetside is going to have something for you. So check them out today. And of course, look for their beer in any bottle shops, convenience stores in the area. It's not the west side or the east side. The best side is Streetside.
So we're going back to Jake's takes here, I suppose, huh? This is I've got takes for you segment. And
yeah,
well,
this is perfect. Yes, Jake's takes.
Well.
Let me put my feet up. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, to me, was that game not decided mostly in the trenches? I know that things got crazy down the stretch, but Joe Burrow under pressure, considerable pressure early, checking the ball down a ton early in the game. The Bengals, meanwhile, can't get to CJ Stroud, and he's just dicing him up, right? Is that not the story of that game early, at least?
No, it's a story of a lot of games. I've just seen that this team overcome that plenty of times during this run. And I think there's been people today on Monday critical of like Burrow. And I think he wanted to take over the game mode. And obviously it was a poor decision in the red zone when he's throwing to Boyd. There was about 5 different Texans that could have caught that ball. He overshoots Sample. But I think that was really their only hope, and he knew it, that he had to go to gunslinger mentality. And so to your point, the trenches led them down that path, and they were getting dominated where they weren't getting to Stroud. And then Burrow, their only chance was Burrow going off script and kind of channeling that 49ers game from 2021 where him and Chase kind of took things over. And by the way, he almost did it. He just came up short in the red zone a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, the one pick is really bad. The one where he's throwing it and the guy drops off at the flat there's no business throwing the ball, especially on a first down. There's no real excusing that one. There's another one that the Trent.
There's no way it gets caught right by Boyd. Like it's a 0% chance it gets caught.
Especially on a first down. Like I get it on a third down, on a fourth down, you try to really force the issue, but on a first down, throw it away. Let's try again with another play that we can hit in structure, try to stay on schedule. I have a hard time being too critical of Burrow in that game. I think that he had that mistake. He had the ball that Jalen Petrie dropped in the middle of the field on the Trent Irwin post. But I have a hard time blaming him for the Drew Sample deflected interception. And I know that, Paul Daniel Jr. called it greedy. I disagreed with him in the moment. He explained his thinking, trying Drew Sample top shelf, going up, making him elevate. And later in the game, you see Drew Sample take a check down. And once he has a ball in his hands and he's moving, he's fine. But he's a little awkward sometimes catching the football. And so that's, I think, what Paul meant there. I still have a hard time faulting Burrow too much for that. It hits Drew Sample in the hands. It is a little bit high, but it's not a terrible decision outside of the guy you're throwing to sometimes having some issues, at the catch point. So it's, was Burrow too conservative for too long? Did they take too long for him to go into hero ball mode? I think that there's a case you can make there that, have they started that aggression earlier, maybe that gives them more of a chance. And, there was a significant difference in the offense once he did start playing that way. It was definitely frustrating early, though, watching check down after check down being tackled immediately. And that's because whatever the primary concept is, if Burrow wants to read out and hit downfield is not there. And he's quickly saying, okay, my best chance for positive yards here is a check down. And then the Bengals just don't have the guys this year, it seems, to make guys miss and make those checkdowns, 7-8 yard gains like they saw so many last year. And instead they're getting 2-yard gains on them. They're playing behind the chains. And, a lot of people want to blame Boyd for the drops, and the drops were bad. Don't get me wrong, but you can't have those drives they have early, the 3 or 4 straight 3-and-outs in the middle of the game. You need to carry that success a little bit in the middle of the game. We've been talking about that. They've had these hot starts and good finishes, but the middle of the game is counts. And, we saw that this week.
Yeah, I agree. I do think Boyd deserves a ton of blame.
For sure.
Look, if T's out and Jamar gets 6 targets, which I'm going to talk about in a second, because Jamar, was he out there? Oh, he was out there. Was he the best player on the field with the ball in his hand? Oh, he made the biggest play of the game. Crazy. Mm-hmm. There's 2 things for Boyd, and it's not just the drop. Can you score on the 64-yarder? That's a big play, not scoring there and not being able to pull away, and you get tackled. Okay, then catch that ball. And it sucks, and I'm sure no one feels worse than him. And it's one of those plays that you'd like to have back. I know they're confident in him, and they'll go back to him, all of those things. He shouldn't have been in that situation. All the things the guys are saying are true. And guess what? All of those are true, and Tyler should have caught the ball. The other thing that really stood out, you mentioned guys weren't breaking tackles. Our buddy, and we're not going to, I don't think we'll have time for a film segment this week in a condensed week, but our buddy Bengal Sands has posted clips of Joe Mixon. And I think there are a lot of listeners, a lot of Bengals fans like, man, they abandoned the run. They should have run the ball. They should have run the ball more. Joe Mixon left yards on the field on Sunday, a decent amount of yards. This is not a great run blocking team. For whatever reason, they're not great. But the runs that were blocked well, there was one that Sands posted. Mixon runs into his own guy, has no business running into a Bengal, has time, has a clear lane, doesn't take it and runs into his own guy and just, I don't know what he's thinking. And then the other one, it's the 3-yarder that's well blocked. He's untouched in the hole. And it's off the right tackle, right guard. And he gets 3 yards. And I have no idea how that only went for 3 yards. Ben Baby looked it up during the game just to see how many yards were expected. It was a 9 yards were expected on that play, and he got 3. It's hard for an offense that's struggling to stick with the run when you do block well enough, and then those runs end up as not nearly what they should have been, and you're not getting as much out of the run game when you are blocking at a high level. So I know, Joe, there's a lot of times where he doesn't have those lanes, but when he has them, he has to take advantage of them, and that's certainly something I noticed on Sunday.
Yeah, like they're missing the high octane besides Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. But they're getting plays, and there are opportunities. So there's opportunities for Joe Mixon. There's opportunities for Tyler Boyd that are left on the field. There's opportunities for Drew Sample, which, maybe that should be Tanner Hudson on that play, but there's opportunities for Tanner Hudson out there that's left on the field. Trent Irwin makes plays. You got a miscommunication with Andre Yosevach, and there was a chance for him to maybe stake a claim to a bigger role with T. Higgins being out. That didn't happen. So, there's a need for that speed in this offense. There's a need to get that element back. Hopefully Charlie Jones can help with that a little bit. But 2, there's a need to capitalize on the opportunities that you have and make the plays that are available to you. And obviously they come up just short against the Texans. They can't get that clutch play on defense to ice the game. They can't get that catch to make it much harder for the Texans to win the game there with a field goal at the gun. So yes, they have some limitations in personnel that have certainly revealed themselves this season on both sides of the ball. We can talk about, the safety issues, the defensive.
We can get to that for sure. We should.
We've alluded to that. We can talk about it more, but on the offense, I think it's showing up too. Alex Kappa having one of his worst career games in pass protection against Sheldon Rankins. There's stuff like that that's happening, and that's how you lose a game that you otherwise should win. And we can wrap up those thoughts and talk a little bit about Thursday Night Football. Like you said, short week, so big game. Probably time to think about that a little bit here as well, and the implications there, because the AFC North just keeps winning, and we'll go there coming up next. Today's episode of Locked On Bengals is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And that Bengals win total sure does seem volatile right now. Felt great about it before the Texans game. Felt great about it the week before that. And now things are getting a little bit dicey with injuries piling up. But right now, new customers will get a $150 bonus bet credit with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team just wins. So the Bengals go out, take care of Baltimore, $150 free dollars in bonus bet. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, no better time to get in on the action. You can bet on spreads, players, props, overs, unders, and more at FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Today's show is also brought to you by the #1 dentist in the city, Pierce Dental Group. And Pierce Dental Group, they have two locations, one in downtown Cincinnati, the other in northern Kentucky, the premier dental group in the area. They're going to provide you with world-class experience and create confident smiles. Whether you're T. Higgins, you're Joe Burrow, you're Chidobe Awuzie, or you're a Locked On Bengals listener, Pierce Dental is going to be able to get you exactly what you need, whether it is simple, just regular routine care, cosmetics, dental implants, Invisalign. They have you covered. And they were established in 1942 in downtown Cincinnati. They have over 1,300 five-star Google reviews, and they're a member of the Professional Football Dental Association. Go where the pros go. Check them out today at piercedental.com. That's PEARCE dentalgroup.com. They are local. They are the best in the business. So check them out, piercedentalgroup.com, or search Pierce Dental Group on Instagram or Facebook.
You know, I thought we were over some of these conversations, James, about the spots in the offseason that we thought the Bengals didn't do quite enough to address, or were skeptical about their efforts to address. And, they win all these games in a row, feeling good about the direction the season is going. And then this game rears its head. And then Trey Hendrickson gets hurt. Now T. Higgins is hurt. And you've got some guys missing that are starters, that are key players. And now suddenly you feel all this real heavy right now.
You do. I wrote about it for All Bengals. The two guys on the Texans that we certainly talked about a lot on this pod, and you've talked about Sheldon Rankins in the past, but I think the other two that we talked about the most, Dalton Schultz is just out there and signs on either March 20th or 21st. I forget, but free agency was like a weekend, and just over $6 million, a steal, and gives them multiple third down conversions on Sunday, and has over 400 yards receiving already, 4 touchdowns, is a big part of their offense. And then this one hurts. Singletary. We talked about Singletary a ton, and he signs for $2.7 million. I think 2.5 was guaranteed. I looked it up, and I know he's their backup there. Well, guess what we were talking about? Adding him for depth, adding him for the backup, whether it was behind Joe Mixon or whatever rookie they drafted or whatever the case is. And so that's the part that stinks is on Sunday specifically, their needs, or guys at least that we thought they should target to address those needs in free agency, they beat them. And there were big factors in key moments for the Texans.
They were. And it's something that if the Bengals are going to go to where they want to go, they need to overcome not having those guys, not making these moves now, because in the middle of the season, after the trade deadline, especially where the Bengals stood pat, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. And, I like what Tanner Hudson's doing. He was instrumental on that first drive where they score a touchdown. They come out and he has 5 catches on the first drive. I mean, big drive for him. And he looked good, and Burrow trusted him, and he converted their first down of the game. And so, this isn't to slight those guys, but they're a team that has Joe Burrow at quarterback is a team that should be competing deep into the playoffs. And now with the injuries they have and the issues that they've got, it's more on Burrow than it's been. And we talked about that gunslinger mode that he went into down the stretch where he was making the plays and he was doing more. And he talked about trying to make that effort, that concerted effort to try to make more plays. And they might need that in a big way the rest of the way. And they might need to lean on their star quarterback more than they have so far. And he looks healthy now. So not as much concern about that part of the limitation. But with the hole they've put themselves in and the tight margin for error they have going forward, where the Steelers can't seem to lose a game 6-3, the Browns had that crazy comeback to get to 6-3, and the Ravens still leading the pack. It's unfairly, perhaps, more significantly on Joe Burrow's shoulders than it ever has been, and certainly more so than I expected at this point in the season based on preseason expectations.
Sure. And when you have a defense that gets beat up in the secondary and Noah Brown's running free and doing his best Chad impression with the number 85 at Paycor, it's tough. And that's the other element to this is this defense. If they're not forcing turnover, sometimes they just can't get stops. And that was certainly the case Sunday. They just could not get off the field. Dalton Schultz was part of a couple of those big third down conversions, including one before the half where the Texans were able to get the lead going into halftime. You can't have that. And maybe they can solve it. Maybe they can figure it out. I know Nick Scott has taken a lot of heat, and there are some questions there. I do wonder what they do. I think Dax Hill has been solid, but they need more. They need more overall from the defense. I think they need more from guys around Burrow, and that's the part where it would have been nice. And this isn't hindsight, by the way. If you're new to Locked On Bengals, we talked about these guys in March. This is not something new. I'm not trying to, they could have went. No, we talked about it in real time. And so that's what makes it a little more difficult. We'll see. We'll see if they can overcome it. Here's what I'll say. The odds of Joe Burrow continuing to throw red zone interceptions, that's really low. We know Tyler Boyd is pretty sure-handed overall, had an awful game on Sunday. I don't expect that to necessarily continue. I think this team needs some juice on offense. Look for Charlie Jones to potentially get activated this week. Maybe he can help with that. Chase Brown, hopefully he's close to a return. That would be nice to maybe have another option in the backfield. And maybe he can give them kind of what Tanner Hudson has at tight end, where he stabilizes it a little bit. It's not like you feel great about that spot, but it's been more stable the past couple of weeks. So there's a lot there in this Bengals team. We're going to have more on the game, Bengals Ravens, ahead of Thursday Night Football. We have a couple of shows before it, but Jake, this is a big one now as the Bengals try to avoid dropping 2 in a row and just 5-5 on the season.
And what a tough game. Tough matchup against a team that's played really well this season on the road in prime time on a short week where you have new injuries to deal with, and the Ravens do too. But boy, one of those things where they're 0-13 as a road primetime team in the last 20 years.
Yep.
How about breaking that?
Is it 20 years? Is it 20 years? I don't know if that is the case, but the rest is. And it might be 20 years.
That's a Jay Morrison, Jay's Got Stats tweet. That's where I saw that one. It's not a good record for road primetime games. It's something that Joe Burrow...
It's since 2013, last 10 years.
Okay, 10 years. So it's something that Joe Burrow has been great with this team at breaking these unsavory streaks for the Cincinnati Bengals. Something that, Jay tweeted it. We've seen Zach Taylor use that stuff as motivation before, and something that could help to motivate this team in a game that they shouldn't need any motivation for. But, you take anything for that little bit of extra edge. And like you said, James, we'll switch gears here and start focusing on that Thursday night game the rest of the week here. And then we'll have you covered after Thursday Night Football. So a couple more episodes this week before the game. We'll have a game preview. We'll have our crossover Thursday coming up later this week. So until then, thanks for listening to this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast, and have a good one.